in terms of thinking about virtual learning and being able to, we're going to probably, I've heard rolling wave might be, I think someone did touch on A day, B day, but, some periods the kids will be learning at home, then they'll be, another month back in the school, or, it would be on and off. So what have we learned so far about virtual learning? Like where do we started off in DC a little, we struggled getting it kicked off for different reasons. And can we talk about where our weaknesses, what are our weaknesses, and how we improved, and how can we continue to improve?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Matrice.
Okay. So I think like multiple things have worked well, multiple things have not worked well. I think it's like really on an individual case by case basis, like what has really worked well, and if like certain things work well for certain groups. I know for a fact like what has not worked well is for our students with disabilities and other students who are receiving specialized services like across the nation, no matter what kind of economic or racial or like even linguistic kind of subgroup that you're coming from, like just across the nation, across all tiers. That has not been done really well. Rather, it is like, how do we get our students to get their therapeutic time with their school psychologist or with their OT, or if they're seeing like an audiologist or any of those other kind of like very specialized kind of services that they're receiving in school. Like it's kind of hard to like quickly pivot and make those telehealth services, and certain districts have that capacity, other districts don't. And so like getting students those services have been very stressful for a lot of parents. Particularly the parents that I've worked with who have children with autism, those students who have like ABA therapists. It is really hard now for those parents to now be those primary educators and then have to try to figure out like, what are these strategies that we're working with my kid who may have like oppositional defiance and, really has formed a bond with their ABA therapist or with their special education teacher. And now that, I'm kind of dumped with this kid all day. And that was like a source of attention for a lot of families that I've spoken with who have kids with disabilities. I think it's going to be imperative moving forward for schools and districts to be really conscious of how we're supporting those families. Like as an organization, like we have created like a Facebook group where parents who have children with disabilities come, their resources and things like that. And we've kind of partnered with a couple of different schools to kind of just have like regular kind of open conversations where parents can kind of have ask questions of the school staff and be like, you were working with my kid with this, like, how do we do like these open office hours? So it's just making sure like parents have what they need is no matter what the past has been, like moving forward, like that's just going to be super important.
I think one thing that this is really highlighted is just this idea of technology on so many different levels. For the adults, just the lack of knowledge and use of technology platforms and really trying to get them up to speed and comfortable with using these technology platforms to interact and educate the students. I know at the school I work for, it was a huge learning curve, and some teachers like, I've never used this before, I'm unsure, and it was like tons of training, and just like it took a lot of time to get them comfortable with the platforms. And so now it's been really great to see like their creativity in being able to give lessons to students now that they're comfortable with the platforms, and they're using like Instagram and they're on Twitter, and they're using Teams, and they're creating these really cool lessons where before they were like a deer in headlights, like wait, they're leaning into the camera to speak in the microphone, and you're like, okay, we can hear you, you can back, like those type of things were happening at the beginning, or people now, is my camera on, can you see me? And so like a lot of those things you're starting to see teachers become a little bit more comfortable with, and which is making the educational lessons a little bit more engaging for students. I think even students found out they weren't as technology savvy as they thought they were. So they could work their cell phones, they could work Instagram and all those things. But when it came down to like signing on to a platform. We're getting phone calls and text messages. Like, I can't find Teams. How do I download the app? What do you mean? What's the World Wide Web? Like, what? Like, that's not an app. Like, no, you got to go to the bar. And like, just even like a lot of those things have happened. And so I think moving forward, as we plan for a school year that most likely will have some sort of virtual component to it, is just really making sure that we have that technology piece in place. I think it also highlighted just like the divide amongst communities. So for example, my niece who lives in an affluent community in Pennsylvania, they already had one-to-one laptops. So when this all happened, they were already set because they already had that technology piece at home. And so they could kind of get the ball rolling because everyone already had access to technology versus in other communities, that was a real challenge in trying to get students access to technology and figuring out, okay, so some teachers are providing teaching on technology, some are using the packets, and parents are frustrated because there's so much difference in like, I have 3 kids in the home and each of their 5 teachers are doing something different. We only have 1 computer, and like just really trying to figure all that out and navigate that was really, really challenging for a lot of our families. So I think as we move forward, just trying to come up with a plan that is consistent, one that is manageable for our families and for our students. And then again, continuing to just teach people how to use technology and continue to be engaging and deliver the lesson, because again, that can be intimidating and you can have the content knowledge, but then now how do you deliver it in a meaningful way and still build that, have that feeling of community and connectedness virtually. I think is something that we want to think about as we plan for like teacher trainings and stuff like that coming back in the fall.
I was literally just going to talk about connectedness. I think I have seen a lot of teachers get really creative on how to connect students virtually. And I think when we talk about what Nicole was talking about trauma-informed lens, is making sure that teachers are creating that culture and creating that consistent skill building and relationship building. So I have just seen some really amazing ways that teachers are connecting with their students and allowing the students to connect with each other. So whether that's sharing something special or bringing something to their Zoom meeting, kind of like a show and tell. I've seen spirit weeks where kids are dressing up and then talking about their different outfits. And so I think because there isn't this in-person interaction, teachers have had to get really creative on how do I continue to foster this idea of community and connectiveness and this human interaction that all of us still need, regardless of the fact that we are apart. So I think, again, moving forward, teachers should continue to think about, you know, when I'm planning my lesson or when I'm thinking about teaching virtually, how do I have those components where it's not just, okay, we get on Zoom, you know, we start our lesson, but the first however many minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we are doing some sort of activity where we are building relationships as a class community.
I'm curious about everyone's thoughts around, in addition to making sure the technology is accessible and is usable, also being intentional about creating spaces to unplug and incorporating that in the shared learning experience. You know, when I hear about kids getting a laptop, like that's wonderful. And I also wish it came with like an art kit and a journal. And, you know, I think it was really great to hear you know, people's routines, being able to take more walks outside. You know, how can we make that part of the learning experience too, so we can keep that balance?
I know at the high school level, at least where I am, how they've done it is that the mornings are free. I guess elementary school students do their learning in the morning, and then the high schoolers do their learning in the afternoon. And then actually, while we're supposed to be introducing new content, it's really based around an office hour kind of scheduler format. And so you send the kids your office hours, and then they choose to log in with you at an appropriate time for help with work. And what I found, especially in the beginning, a lot of kids were asking for office hours and didn't have or want to do work. They were literally just like talking your ear off. And so I know another teacher said last week actually that one of her students somehow got her cell phone number and has been calling her about absolutely nothing. And so there is stuff happening where students are needing to connect just to talk about something other than schoolwork and something other than COVID. And I think it's probably happening more at the upper levels than it might be happening in elementary. But I am seeing that amongst the high schoolers I'm working with, and other teachers at our grade level are seeing it also, that students are utilizing some of the office hours just for like regular kind of relational time with other adults.
I was going to say I'm in elementary school, and our behavior tech created on Wednesday and Friday mornings breakfast. So we log on and the kids eat breakfast. We share what we're eating for breakfast, whether it's your cereal, and we have a theme song and the song comes on and we're all excited. I get to fit a little SEL in there. And then we're like pumped to start our day. But the kids was like, oh, I get to see what Miss Denny's kitchen looked like. What are you eating? And I'm like, I'm eating cereal just like you. Like, I'm having oatmeal today too. And so they enjoyed that. So yeah, even at the elementary level, they want to see what their friends are doing. They want to see what the teachers are doing and get to see our faces. So yeah.
And I think for us, the school where our kiddos go for their PE class, like they're like, don't get online. So they just send home like weekly choice boards, and like kids get a certain amount of points. And it's just like, they can pick whatever kind of physical activities they want to do. And it's just like encouraged for them just to kind of keep a log of like their physical activities. And they're just reporting that out on a weekly basis, just so that like every class is not something that they have to get online in order to kind of be a part of.
I was going to say, I think teachers getting creative with their lessons, and, even before COVID and going virtual, we talked a lot about, trying to infuse at more SEL or more like of those mindful practices throughout the day and throughout the things that students do. So some of our teachers have gotten really creative in the type of lessons that they're providing students. So even if they're coming online for like instruction or to ask questions, they've done some really cool stuff that kind of taps into that creativity of the students, like having to draw something rather than write a traditional report. Or one teacher did a really cool history assignment where the kids had to like find music or songs that told a story about like, they had to put together a playlist and submit their playlist. So we were all excited because we got really great playlists from the students. And it was super creative. It was a really creative way to get them to explore era and time and kind of think about their thoughts in that way. So I think we can really use this time as a time to be creative and step away from like our traditional ways of assessing kids and learning, and really say, okay, like what are some other great areas that we can tap into that can really allow students to like kind of show what they know without it necessarily being like on the iPad or writing a traditional paper.